Greetings and welcome to Old Drunken Discography. This week's panel is the usual suspects: Tim,
Hola.
Bill,
I didn't do it.
and myself, Jason. Yes, you did. Each week, one of us selects an artist to bring to the panel for everyone to listen, discuss, and rank the studio albums. We will also be mentioning, but not ranking, some notable non-studio album releases along the way. This one didn't have any. I guess they had that one song on the Spider-Man, but whatever. This week, it's Bill's pick. And
I guess I did do it.
And he chose Nickelback. I give you Alice in Chains. You give me Nickelback. So starting off,
I give you a photograph.
Yeah, you did. You gave us 2 photographs now. Go check out our Def Leppard review. If you like this content, hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel out. Consider subscribing to follow along with us. It's greatly appreciated. Hopefully you make it through all 10 of these albums like we did. So starting off, our brief relationship history with Nickelback. I guess I'll start. I stopped listening to the radio way before this band was big. So the only thing I really knew besides Photograph for the memes and How You Remind Me is that a lot of people make fun of them. So I went into this new discography with an open mind and positive vibes, thinking they're no worse or better than any of the other of their contemporaries, I'll say. So I didn't go in with the I hate Nickelback attitude that a lot of people have. Open mind.
I probably first heard about them in 97 or 98, so pretty early. And they were part of a trend that I was noticing going on in music where hard rock, heavy metal was shifting into a different realm, I guess. And I wasn't necessarily on board with that, as I was in a band myself. And I thought, music should go elsewhere. I've known of them as a the punchline to a joke. And I've heard a number of these songs over the years, but I was never a fan and never bothered to actually listen to an album willingly.
All right. Bill, what's your history with Nickelback?
So, my history begins... Let's see. So, I was born after this date came out. So, Silver Side would have been the first album I would have heard songs from. Especially, growing up, I rode the bus every day to school. So, that was 1 hour to school, 1 hour home every day of listening to the radio. And, I mean, at that point, especially 2000s radio rock, that was your Nickelback, Godsmack was still on there, MCR, Green Day, Creed was still creeping in there too a lot. I mean, it was a lot of those same similar bands. So I'd say the first album that I really listened to, not so much aggressively, but more avidly, I would say, would probably be like All the Right Reasons and then Dark Horse, were the first 2 albums I actually somewhat listened to. I never actually owned any Nickelback albums. I will follow that up. However, I've never actually bought any albums either for music myself. I just listen online and stream the content myself. When I was in college, my roommate looked at me and said, "Why the hell are you listening to Nickelback? They're the worst band ever." I'm like, all right, time out. There are way worse bands out there. There's a lot of songs I listened to on the radio that I thought were worse than Nickelback. Especially, the singles. Did they have singles I didn't like? Sure. But most of the singles I liked and appreciated. So through college, so that would have been 2016 to 2020 is when I listened to them in college. Filtered it into my playlist with a bunch of other bands and stuff. And, I've done my own research as why people hate Nickelback. And like when we get to the albums, I'll delve a little bit more into that. Because there was a couple albums and a couple points in time in their history that really, I think, is exasperated, might be the word I'm looking for, people's hatred towards them, as well as the media pop culture, which I believe we're going to be talking about the music industry a little bit in this discography from our pre-discussion here. And you know, I've heard of these 10 albums. I've actively listened to 6 of them. The middle 6, I'll be honest. The first 2 I didn't have as much exposure. One of them I did. And the I did not know they released an album in 2022. But I was interested to see what was released on that album, and well, when we get to that video here, you'll see what I thought about that album.
All right. I guess we will just jump right into Curb. I'll start this one off. It was released in 1996. What happened in 96, Tim?
Well, I mean, are you referring to the Telecommunications Act of 1996?
Just saying it's a wacky coincidence. All right, I'll get into the album now. Little Friend. Always, we'll be talking about that act here shortly, a couple albums later. Always a fan when a band starts an album with a vinyl crackle and pop. Opening lines of the discography is manhunt to find your daughter buried underneath the water. Now they consult a psychic, find how much I like it. That's some dark shit. I give it a 2 out of 5. The guitar is repetitive and it sounds like 1996, like every other post-grunge radio rock that was dominating at the time. Pusher.
Live.
Same.
You remember that band?
Yeah, but live was, I guess, I could have grabbed that vinyl. Detangler, I like the guitar riffs. It had some energy to it. Still not a fan of the D-Rate Eddie Vedder vocals, but the music was alright. Curb, the title track, starts out with some Can't Find a Better Man, but it does have some pickup here and there, and I don't mind Chad's vocals when he's not doing the Creed thing. Mind you, this is minus Photograph, and This Is How You Remind Me. This is like the only Nickelback I know to this point. All right. Where the intro was straight Pearl Jam 10 era. I guess the little bass and vocal sections were decent. Fall Back On was decent. It wasn't original, but it at least had a little Soundgarden Super Unknown thing going on. Sea Groove sounded like Bush's 16 Stone. I liked Bush's 16 Stone and would rather listen to that. I think this is the first time the drums did anything remotely interesting. Fly wasn't bad. The vocals were okay. I liked the quiet, loud Nirvana Pixies thing they were going for. Just For It, this is Bush again. The drums are okay. I haven't touched on the production, but it's pretty decent for a first album. Weak-ass guitar solo. Left, I swear this was the same intro as the opening song. It all sounds the same. The vocal melody and delivery on the Ooh, I Am the Only One was pretty cool. And it does do a little tempo change that was okay. Oh, and by God, it had a guitar solo that wasn't just the main vocal melody played slower. All right, Window Shopper. This one sounds cool. Weird but interesting drum sounds. The guitar riff was okay with the palm mute strumming, and the outro was decent. I don't have. We are deep into the Pearl Jam 10 worship here. Very forgettable closer, maybe due to the fact it's over 4 minutes long and it just kept repeating the same music. Not even a guitar solo to break it up. It's no better than every other watered-down post-Pearl Jam Solus, Radio Ready, Godsmack, Papa Roach, Creed, Disturbed, Stain, Shinedown, See Their Puddle of Mud, Hinder, Three Doors Down, Eve 6 bullshit. If you like those bands, you should like Nickelback too. Saying that, it had a few half-decent songs for the genre. Window Shopper, Fall Back On, and Detangler were okay.
Yeah, and for an independent album, like, it's produced pretty well. Like, it sounds decent. The performances are all acceptable. I think my biggest problem with it is that, nothing stood out. Everything was very predictable. very simple. We're barely doing more than eighth notes. We're going to talk about what I like to call binary music a lot. If you know anything about guitar tab, the first two notes on the low string are 0 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's all you're doing, okay.
You could do
A
something
lot of
more.
people do it. I call it binary.
Which was the sound at the time.
Say it again.
That was the sound at the time. I mean, that was what was big, you know.
Sure, and I will give them a point for this where they're 6 years ahead of where the radio is going to be, because they've already got their sound. You can just tell, like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to refine a little bit and get a little poppier.
So that's it. They've got the bass down.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's all there. It's all there. I was kind of surprised. There were little Soundgarden-y moments kind of sprinkled throughout that they did fairly well. It's just so predictable. And yeah, lack of guitar solos on here really hurts. It's a lot of repetitive binary riffs.
It's 10 without the guitar solos.
About 120 BPM. Verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And the Cat in the Hat Strikes Back lyrics are here. They don't go away. They get, you know, a little more Green Eggs and Ham in certain albums, but this one's a little more Cat in the Hat Strikes Back.
See, I didn't catch that on this one, and it might have been because it was the first one.
It's there. It's all there.
It is present out. Yeah, it is present. Well, it's kind of present throughout, but yeah.
But by going in, yeah, like, if I was in a position where I had to choose a Nickelback album, maybe this would be one I'd be like, okay, you could throw that one on, because I do like the raw production on it. It's really clean for, you know, what it is, and yeah.
I got a couple top songs from it. There's some good riffs on here.
I'm not a big fan of the guitar tone.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
very 96 tone-wise.
Yeah. And then, you know, people had better tone and better riffs in 96.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Got a machine head, better than the rest.
Well, I don't know if I'd go better there. Yeah, there is a lot of Bush here. And I think we're predating Bush even a little bit, right? Or did Bush came out in 93 or 4, right? I don't. Yeah, maybe they did beat it. Yeah. Very, very, very safe, basic 1996 radio rock for the minivan.
All right, Bill, what about you? This is one of the ones that you did not know going in.
That is correct. This is one of the albums that I did not know fully going in. So with this album, is interesting because, I mean, Tim mentioned there's a lot of foundation for what Nickelback does, especially throughout the 2000s, that they set forth in this album, which it's good or bad. It's nice to know that they laid this foundational pieces and then they stuck with them, right? They didn't change their identity a lot compared to what they did at the start for certain aspects. Obviously, they changed a lot of their sounds and some of the other stuff, but like their very base core foundation, I feel like doesn't divulge that much from this original album. The production, I will say, definitely was interesting because I've been with the albums I was used to. I was used to the cleaner production. I was used to what was their actual radio rock, their true radio rock, that they were producing, I should say. And actually, Jason, I'll concur. Like this album, nothing really stands out compared to everything else as well. Like it's monotone isn't the word, but it's very, I'll say monochromatic, just from the standpoint there's not a lot of colorful things going on. There's not a lot of diverse things. One thing, and I'll mention this again in another album, I would have liked to have heard a little bit different stuff with the guitar going on. Just because, I mean, the guitarist isn't, they're good, but they just don't do a lot, which is kind of like, and because there's glimpses where it's like, okay, playing something actually kind of cool going on here. Why don't you do that more often? And this album, there was never any instance of like, oh, there's a really cool guitar just shredding for a little bit. It was just what you were going to hear on the radio in 6 years. Which,
they are competent guitarists. Like, they can do shit. They choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to say they're bad musicians. They are great musicians.
Yep. Which, I mean, it's kind of interesting to see. I mean, is that Chad holding them back and saying, nope, like, you're not going to do? Because I know when an album coming up here, I'm going to comment how pronounced the vocals are relative to everything else. Because especially, I mean, at this time, they're on a small indie record. So unless you're telling me the record label is actually telling them, you know, nope, we've got to mix things differently here.
Yeah, like, no, this is them like, we got to get a good demo so we can get on the radio and be big rock stars.
Exactly.
Let's do whatever we got to do.
Yep. So it's like, okay, why? No, I mean, especially, I mean, think back to 96. I mean, obviously I wasn't alive, but knowing what albums and stuff was coming out in 96, I mean, guitar solos seemed to definitely be the thing. Premiering different of the instruments within different aspects of the song seemed to be a different type of thing. Vocals were important, but I'm just thinking back to different albums we've covered. I feel like 96, there wasn't a lot of, I don't want to say pronounced vocalists, but like, it was okay really for like,
96, 97 is when it started turning more to like the higher pitched vocals, like your droning, like Radiohead started getting bigger, and
right. And then in hard rock, everybody tried to sound like Eddie Vedder or Lane Staley or James Hetfield.
Okay. Which makes sense why those bands. Yeah, no, that all makes sense.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, 96, obviously, like Chris Cornell is one of the greatest singers to ever live, I would say. And he was going strong in 96.
It's a very competent first album, and I did eventually watch the Nickelback movie about, I'll get to the album where I stopped and took a break and watched the movie. But they were, I mean, you got to give them credit. Like, they worked pretty damn hard in the beginning. I mean, Chad was like calling up radios and like requesting, you know, he'd get all his friends to call and request them to be played. So, I mean, they had their feet on the ground in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, they were a workhorse in the beginning. And he took the money and spent half of it on shrooms.
So he could make more money, apparently.
That makes sense.
You know. All right, let's we're not ranking it because it's automatically going to number 1. That album cover is awful, and I think they did a good job with the remake, but we used the originals here, so.
And the remake kind of gets used a couple times.
Yeah, they like cars on roads for some reason. I don't
know.
know.
They like to travel. Let's just put it that way.
They like to travel. All right, so it is sitting comfortably at number 1. Will it remain there? That is the question. Give us a like.
First album bias.
Hashtag first album bias. Yeah, like, subscribe, stick around. Tomorrow it is The State. Or is it just The State? Or is it just State? I can't remember.
I think that's
The
next.
State. The State.
The
Okay.
State.
Stick around for that. Be safe. Make good decisions.
Hold on to the thread. The currents will share